We're on one of our two employment practice group calls. If you've not seen me before, I'm Chris Short. I'm looking after all the practice groups, not just employment, and making sure that you sort of get a regular programme of events going. But the chair is Laura. She is from BTO Scotland. I'll let her introduce herself. She's the new chair, and she has kindly asked Lizzie Donaldson to speak to us, and I'll let Laura do the introduction for that. But this is essentially an introduction. I'm just looking, Laura, I'm thinking because we've got a few on, should we do the introductions first? Because I think Lizzie's going to have enough time. If we do that first, I'll let you go around the clock and do the introductions, you first, and then everyone else, I'll let you lead that. And then after Lizzie has given our talk, we'll open the floor to questions and then a discussion. And maybe the last 10 minutes, we can discuss what we might want to do on the next call in maybe for 5-6 months down the road or sooner, if that's good. So without further ado, Laura, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you, Chris, and thanks everyone for joining the call this morning. It's lovely to see you, obviously familiar faces, which is great. So just a bit about me. I now head up the employment law team here at BTO. We are a full service commercial law firm in Scotland. I've been practicing employment law for 20 years now, 9 of which I have spent at BTO. I'm proud to lead a team that's made up of 3 partners, 2 legal directors, an associate and 3 solicitors. So we've got a team that's expanding, and together we bring about 130 years of employment law experience to the table, which makes us sound very old, but really what it means is that each of us have, specialised for all or the majority of our careers in employment law. Within the team, the 3 partners, so Caroline, who was on the call, myself and Dawn are all accredited specialists in employment law by the Law Society of Scotland. In terms of the type of work that we do, so we act for employers and employees. I know some employment lawyers tend only to deal with employer clients. We do both employer and employee work. We undertake contentious work, so we're in the Employment Tribunal, the Employment Appeal Tribunal, the court session, but we also do non-contentious work and corporate advisory work as well. We are specialists across a variety of sectors, and we're ranked highly in the UK legal directories. And Yannick and Aldo will have heard this from me before. Although we're based in Scotland, employment law is the same across the whole of the UK. So if you've got any clients that are looking for employment law advice in London, Manchester, somewhere else in the UK, for example, we can absolutely do that. I'm currently assisting a senior executive in London who's leaving a PLC in a high-level exit this week. So if there's anything you can take away from that pitch there, it's that we are, able to do any work within the UK in the employment law sphere. That's about it from me. So I shall pass over to Yannick. If you want to give us a bit about you.
Thank you, Laura. Just short from me, I also work with employment law, but a lot of company law, and the group in Codex law firm that is working with employment law is a group of only 4 lawyers at the moment. So we are, of course, only allowed to advise in Denmark, and I would say most of the lawyers, they work half the time with the employment law, those connected to my group. So altogether we are approximately 40 lawyers in Codex law firm, and we cover all the area in Denmark. So we are interested in working together with you abroad, and we have offices in Copenhagen and in Jutland. We have 2 offices, so we cover all of the area in Denmark.
Perfect. Thank you, Yannick. Aldo, do you want to give us a bit about you?
Yeah, our firm is a 40 lawyers firm. We have only one office in Milan, but we have a network of independent office all around Italy we work with. My focus was originally the commercial law. I worked in the 90s in Germany. Then in the last 25 years, more or less, I followed also the employment law practice, and I am the head of the department of employment law of the firm, which we are 4 persons, so do not think that I am a very important person. But in any case, the focus of my work is assisting international clients. So 90% of my work is for international clients, and I am happy to say some of them come through Mackrell. For example, Codex provided a very good client to us, so thank Yannick. So Italy is a bit strategic because we have a lot of foreign companies. Many are shutting down, unfortunately, but it is still quite strategic, and there is still room for us. Only to mention it, our company does everything in the field of civil commercial law, IP law, except tax law and criminal law. As I said, in the employment law, we are three people that work mainly in this. I must say I retain, for a small part of my work, I retain some activities that are either related to data protection, because I followed data protection law from the very beginning in all the firms I have been in. And as you know, data protection has a very strict connection with employment law. So I follow mainly this angle. And then I do also commercial law on occasion.
Thank you, Aldo. Yeah, I mean, on that point, just in relation to data protection law, that's certainly an area where we overlap a lot with our colleagues in Scotland. Here we've got a data protection team, and there's an awful lot of overlap between employment law and data protection at times. So thanks for that. Bettina, would you like to tell us a bit about you?
Yes, thank you, Laura. Yeah, this year I'm a lawyer since 24 years, and I'm also experienced in employment law since this time. I work since, I think, nearly 8 years as a partner in SKW Schwarz here in our Hamburg office. We have offices also in Munich, Berlin, and in Frankfurt. And I'm the leader of the practice group employment law here in our SKW law firm. And we have 4 partners who are specialized in employment law, and as well 3 associates. And we all work only for employers and for managers on the employee side, yes, and we are experienced in the full scope of German employment and social security law. And that means employment contracts, M&A processes, negotiating with works councils and trade unions in restructuring processes, and as well the full scope of the litigation processes here in front of the court.
Excellent. Thank you, Bettina. And Sal, would you like to tell us a bit about you?
Thank you, Laura. Firstly, I'm very happy to join the employment practice group. Just to summarize, we are a business law firm in Casablanca. We cover multi areas in business law. We are mainly two partners. Each partner has its team. One partner handling all aspects M&A, it can be real estate, it can be corporate, and the other partner with me. I lead the practice of employment and also litigation, and also I intervene in other area, but mainly the employment practice represents an important practice in our law firm. I developed an important expertise in employment since I joined the Casablanca bar since 2012, and also I worked with ANO Allen Overy Casablanca in both the employment department and also in the litigation department, who handle not only employment practice, but the other areas of business law. In general, I developed an important expertise. We handle all the aspects, starting from the incorporation, starting from the employment agreement, until the dismissal. We handle all aspects relating to the restructuring, to the secondment, mobility, etc. We developed an important expertise, and we think that we can give an input to this practice group.
Excellent. Well, that's great. I mean, ideally, what we're looking for with this practice group is really just to, obviously, to connect and to collaborate and to share ideas, issues that are, we're all facing in the employment law world, and working together, just to see in which ways we can connect, etc., going forward. So that's fantastic. So Chris, will we press on with Lizzie's input? If I just do a
I think so. It's what everybody's been waiting for, Lizzie. Absolutely. The moment has arrived. So could I just, before you introduce Laura, can I just ask that you all go on to mute while Laura's presenting, and then demute at the end when there'll no doubt be some questions. Laura.
Okay, so Lizzie. Lizzie is a fantastic employment law consultant who works with in-house legal teams across multiple jurisdictions, global and European corporations. She's got the profile of our clients, and she's absolutely someone that we know and we trust well, and we collaborate and work with Lizzie a lot. Lizzie is a bit of an expert on intergenerational working, and so she's going to take us through a workshop on that, and within that we'll explore the challenges that this can cause in the workplace, potential solutions, and we can have a discussion about how we see this playing out within our own practices, but also with our employer clients. So over to you, Lizzie.
Thank you, Laura, and nice to meet you. Thank you for having me along. Another Scottish accent for you, so I will try and speak a bit slower. As Laura said, I'm an in-house employment lawyer. Laura forgot to mention she actually was once my line manager back in the day. So Laura and I were in practice together, and then I quickly realised private practice was not for me, but I really work hard on the extensions of my in-house teams with private practice employment lawyers. In-house law is becoming, harder because of less resources and more asks, especially in the space of people. So as an in-house employment lawyer, you're asked to do whistleblowing work, you have to do the risk and compliance committees, you're busy doing, COVID health and safety risk assessments. It is a catch-all territory. So I think the opportunity for private practice and in-house to collaborate more is really welcomed from our side, and this Mackrell International speaker opportunity is a great example of that. I've worked with almost every jurisdiction, I think, in my practice. But as Laura said, I became a legal consultant. I set up my own business a year and a half ago, and I do a lot of retainer work with corporate clients or in-house legal teams. But through that and through my practice of being an employment lawyer, more and more the requirements have changed. You know, the kind of dismissals, suspensions, disciplinaries really do not equate a suitable solution in the modern workplace. And more, the issues coming at us are largely down to intergenerational politics. So different age demographics in one workplace working together. And when Laura and I were discussing this, we were saying it's relevant for you guys who manage teams, and it's great to hear that a lot of you are in those leader positions. It's relevant to your fellow partners in your practices to take some of this intel and insight back, but it's also relevant to when you're handling employer clients, because I think it's creative solutions that are needed here. There isn't a kind of legal answer when these issues come up in grievances, in reward conversations, and or kind of employee relations, well-being, cultural equations. So it's getting less and less about black letter law and more about really understanding demographics of employees and culture of employees in the workplace. And as Laura said, I'm incredibly passionate on this topic and take any opportunity to explain a bit more about it. So I have a few slides today, and I will share my screen so that we can, you'll have something to look at. And at the end, I'm very happy to take questions. So let me just flick this to slideshow. Oops. Oh, hang on a minute. Here we go. Let's go back to the beginning. Here we are. That's a little bit about me. I've already explained who I am, but some of the in-house teams, I led the Diageo team in terms of Europe employment law. I then led the global employment team in Condé Nast. I work on retainers with Nokia and ABB currently, so very much across that international space. In fact, I think I do very little UK law, and that's why people like Laura are incredibly helpful to me. Just as a side note, I have a business called Berry, and we are passionate to bring lawyers mentors. So very much in the well-being and development space of the future legal profession. And I have a bank of really willing lawyers ready to give their time and commitments back to the professions. It's going really well in the UK. I'm incredibly keen to get this into international markets, so watch this space. This is the agenda for what we're going to try and cover off. So I'm just going to go through the components and skills of a multi-generational workforce. I am obviously from the UK. Quite a lot of my speaker content and research is based on kind of UK evolutions. So I don't excuse that, but you will no doubt have a cultural aspect from your countries that we can maybe hear about if we have time at the end of your call. And at the end, I just thought it would be useful to give you a little bit about how this topic is emanating in-house. So when you're in corporates, what types of issues are coming up and what are we spending our time advising on? Because at the end of the day, the private practice firms are an extension of the in-house teams if you've got a good relationship, and you could really help with some creative work and or kind of inspiring ideas if you're in those types of relationships. So excuse the size of the screen, but this basically is how we give terminology to the 5 multi-generational workforces currently operating in most modern workplaces. We're going back to 1928, and Gen Z are around the up to age 29 just now. Coming up the back, we've got Gen Alpha, and they're currently from ages kind of 8 to 14 just now. So Gen Alpha are the future of your talent pipelines, however your traineeships, apprenticeships, summer interns, etc. work. But this slide is just to really call out a couple of examples of how different experiences have been had by these different generations. I call out kind of civil movements, certainly wars, social movements, the access to technology, and it gives a little bit of a demonstration, and I'm sorry that the bottom of the slide's cut there, but we'll fix that for next time. But it gives a little bit of a demonstration as to why we have these different types of skill base. And this is the first time we have generations working side by side in the workplace. And one of the reasons for that is that people are retiring much later in life, or perhaps returning to the workforce after retirement. Obviously we have the aging population. Not trying to generalize here, but it gives you a sense of how social, political and economic times you were brought up in do affect your attitudes to life and work. But the most significant impact has been the technology or digital revolution, which unfolded from the 1950s until the early 2000s. The industrial revolutions were focused on manufacturing and production, with steam, electricity and machinery taking centre stage. And this has been turned on its head by the introduction of intelligent computers. We're now in the era known as the fourth industrial revolution, or as we call it in Berry, Industry 4.0. It's a lot for populations to go through. So the point of this slide, and just to kind of, you'll be aware of a lot of this, but really appreciate the context of conversations of where somebody's coming from and which perspective they've been brought up in. I actually do use this slide in some of my whistleblowing investigations, where I figure out which demographic the complainant is in. And reading this, it gives you a little bit of a sense of why they feel particularly unjust on a topic that they are raising. What is, I suppose, dangerous is stereotyping. So you have to take time to understand who the human behind, whether it's grievances or cultural employee forums is. But we have all been heavily conditioned to understand the typeset. Example, women are this, old people are that, and we're all influenced by the environment that we live in. But we share far more across the generations than we do that separate us. And you'll all know, but workforces that are diverse are the ones who keep the talent longer. So Industry 4.0, as I said, or the fourth industrial revolution, builds on technology. And there's kind of four fundamental types of disruptive technology, which you can see over under 4.0. So connectivity and data, analytics and intelligence, human-machine interactions like VR, robotics, automation, and advanced engineering, things like 3D printing, renewable energy, nanoparticles. Some of these terminologies, people didn't even know what they were, but when you consider the scale and complexity of these new technologies, together with the relative speed at which they have become part of our daily working lives, you may have a new appreciation for why generations who were not digital natives struggle to adapt to a pace of change so fast in the workplace. So what is expected? The old client demands, the kind of reputation that a firm has for whether it's quick delivery, legal excellence, amazing litigation skills. People have to adapt to that depending on, where they've been on this industrial revolution change curve. This slide just really shows you a little bit of how those four components, as I said before, are connecting. But these are just part of the equation. Companies and corporates, and certainly what I speak to my clients about, is ensuring that their employees are properly equipped through upskilling, but also reskilling. Disruptive technology is transforming job roles, and you'll all be no doubt dabbling in artificial intelligence and legal ops to help the back end of your firms. But unfortunately, training is lagging behind where workplaces talk about technology. It's a lot about investment, but really, what does the AI, what does the solution mean for those in the workplace? There's the concept of reverse mentoring or symbiotic learning, and this is where younger employees who are well versed in digital technology, they were brought up in the fourth industrial revolution, they have equivalent rapid change and transformation skills. They can take a problem and pretty quickly work out the steps. They almost work like a project management mind map. Something that other generations have even got to get used to, the concept of project management or change management. So in a couple of our clients, we deploy programs whereby those younger people reverse mentor some of the leaders that are meant to be creating the strategy. But the next generation can do it at speed with project management roadblocks. They can do kind of RASKIs. They have the tools to work out what do you need to get from A to B. The bit that they haven't had the experience of is all that social impact, the wars, the Great Depression, terrorist attacks. They've not had that need to communicate, apart from on COVID-19 pandemic, on critical social movements. And that is what we're needing to work on with the next generation. Ultimately, we need to support employees of all generations, as we've said, and if they share knowledge and exchange knowledge, what you hear is more of the vulnerability coming out of all the groups, so that questions are asked. Each individual then is empowered because they realize they've got a gift or they've got a different perspective that actually really does matter. Instead of it being an irritation or something that's complained about, you can really quickly work out from your demographic which gift each generation is able to give to, whether it's one project or one change in the firm, and you bring them in to deliver that gift, and the empowerment that gives people builds trust. And at the end of the day, it's trust and a feeling like you can contribute in a workplace culture that's the key to retaining talent. Talent will now potentially pass through your doors on 3-year cycles. When I was working in London, it was 18-month cycles. So people are barely in the door and interviewed by the time they're working out, when's my pay rise, when's my promotion, and actually I'm leaving. So I hear a lot that line managers say, I can't invest in this, they're barely here. But actually it doesn't need to be that way. If that person feels like they can contribute, it's not making a difference to your strategy, it's not changing the way that you do billing, it's adding a contribution, something that's unique from their gifts that you don't have. And you as managers and leaders show that vulnerability and let them in. Not to be standoff about the generations that are coming up the back, because from the skills that you've looked at, there is appreciation across the board. So that's the basis for this strange but more obvious difference in the generations. And now we're going to look at how it manifests in the workplace. So in terms of challenges, you guys will maybe I've come across this in some of the work coming over your desk, but it's inevitable that different life experiences and worldviews leads to communication breakdowns. And that's where we end up in issues regards complaints on line management, performance management, kind of retaliation. We have seen quite a lot of research. I think Cornell University in 2024 showed that 55% of over 55s are being excluded from workplace training due to preconceptions about willingness and ability to learn. But similarly, younger workers are unfairly locked out of promotion or development due to lack of perceived experience, regardless of skills. And you've got to think, that just cannot be. That's a high stat, 55%. And I would ask you to reflect on your own firms and your own workplaces if that has probably unconsciously developed, where there is these preconceived perceptions being parroted around the firm. It's often a talking shop, especially in law firms, because they worry about the old way that they used to do the work for the client and the way they used to bill the clients, and do they have that talent in the pipeline to back up the same way that they used to service? And the answer is, these law students came out with skills even better than the ones that we all came out with. And they're even more inspired by their careers. Work does really matter because they're all going for the big ticket item. They've got great big aspirations, and they won't stop short of moving through organizations to get to where they want to go. So for the stepping stones that they're with you, and I always say to clients, think of it as 3 stepping stones. What is the unique sell that you are going to give them? What is the unique opportunity that your firm can give that others can't? And make that your USP. Really market that. Get your talent leads to market that for your future intake, because that's what people hang on to, and that's what keeps them actually even longer. And once you have their kind of trust and they feel like they are contributing, and that their opinion, whether it's an opinion on work or a client, it has a place, it's listened to, doesn't need to be acted upon, but it's not just shut down as a preconceived perception. That's when you've got a team that you can rely on and you can service your clients even better. At the end of the day, the client demographic is also changing through intergenerational diversity. The people on the end of our phones are different profiles. You can have a pretty young leader because they've come up with the skills able to do the job. And actually, they would quite appreciate somebody on your team from a similar walk of life. They don't want to feel like they're speaking to partner-led audiences all the time. And they struggle potentially with communication, the old telephone exchanges and or team monthly management account meetings. It would just be quite nice for them to be able to WhatsApp a senior associate saying, I really need you this morning. Can we, 9:30, let's jump on a call, or indeed chat over the Teams, whatever it is. The modem of communication with clients is up for adaptation, and the next generation coming up can really fuel your ideas for that. Just on the other side, I talk a little bit about inequality of opportunity with the older and younger workers. I mean, age discrimination is a constant theme, sadly, for employment lawyers, where if it's not explained to a particular age category why they do not get that opportunity. So we've had quite a few whereby, partners or senior associates are allowed to go and travel and visit clients. So for me, it's like jetting off to New York to the US clients, and you get the legal counsel or associates saying, well, how am I meant to get exposure to clients when they always kind of deploy the seniors? And like, why is that even fair? Because we're the ones doing all the work back here. And unless you have good communication, open, transparent team explanation on that, people get incredibly caught up in the fact it must be because I'm 30 and you're 50. And look at the way that the young ones are treated in here compared to the old. So these are spurious age discrimination claims coming through. That is not, in fact, the reason that the employer makes the decision. But unless you have a really good explanation, whether it's through email or a minuted team meet, you're going to be in the back foot to have to defend some of this. And these claims are starting to really clog up our system for the ones that actually do really matter. So on the opportunity side, we've talked a little bit about that reverse mentoring at the bottom, the learning and development space that you can create. And I mean, workplace harmony sounds quite cliche, I think. And having worked in law firms, like the thought of, there actually being a breakout coffee suite where you just go and don't do any work, it is perhaps novel, but really ask yourselves, where do you factor that into the monthly cycle of work? Like, where's the harmony coming from? And I don't mean like off-site team events and or like joining together for updates in employment law. It's like, where is the point that people can just chat and not be judged and not have any kind of consequences for having a view and opinion of the way that their employer is working? And if you can work out what that funnel is and how to contain it, you're on to a real sure footing of solidifying your talent and making it opportunities for better decision making, as it says here. I thought I would just show how this is manifesting in the cases that I work in, and particularly these concepts. I don't know if it translates to the countries where you're sitting, but I'll give you the definitions of what's coming through my desk. So microaggression, gaslighting, and tokenism. And I don't know about you, but I trained in 2007, and certainly these terminologies were not in grievance papers, disciplinaries, and or senior exit conversations. So this is all about irritancy, really. This is about people that just cannot stand another's viewpoints. So microaggression is a term used for commonplace verbal, behavioral, or environmental slights, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or a negative attitude. So it sounds a little bit like the dignity at work bullying definitions, but it's not as strong as that. These are slights. These are things that just tick along and just start to really grate on somebody. And now look at that. The next generation have got a name for it, and it's called microaggression. Gaslighting is the practice of psychologically manipulating someone into questioning their own sanity, memory, or powers of reasoning. I mean, it sounds fairly horrendous, but people use that terminology quite a bit in the workplaces that I've been through, and not those clients that were on the screen, but I've worked a lot in media industry, and that kind of questioning somebody's opinion, so it's like there's a lot chat just now about the US presidential election. Everyone's allowed their own viewpoint on it, but when somebody chips away at your power of reasoning, and indeed you feel like you're being held hostage to the conversation, it feels like gaslighting. And when you get these as grievances, they're incredibly hard to work out a methodology with the investigation. Who do you speak to next? Because this is really perceptions. And the last one is tokenism, and that's the practice of making only a perfunctory or symbolic effort to do a particular thing, especially by recruiting a small number of people from underrepresented groups in order to give the appearance of a sexual or racial equality within a workforce. So I've seen that manifest when the consumer is a diverse population, and revenue is dipping, and they think, do you know what, we just need to hire more from a certain ethnic category because we can't converse on the language of our diverse consumer, and that's actually quite a coherent reason to recruit them from that category. But when they're just brought in, and grievances I've had, they're used for their ideas and then they're kind of cast aside. And they call that tokenism. So hopefully that's useful just for a little bit of modern terminology that's coming through our world of employment law. I've talked about that needing to contribute to strategy already. We see quite a lot of complaints about, I just don't feel like I'm listened to in this organisation. And that, by the way, is how you get an uprising in employee relations. If you don't give people that opportunity and that safe outlet, eventually they'll just form a mass, and then the lobbying will start. And we're seeing that a lot, as you guys will as well, with the end of the hybrid workforce. So these the end of flexible working, the mandating 4 days a week in the office or 5 days or whatever it is, and the kind of reactions of the staff who get little notice and are just told to go back to the way they worked 4 years ago. That needs a lot of preemptive thought about public relations and how it's going to go down. Explain yourselves why, what's worrying management and what's lacking now, and what's happened to that revenue that means you have to suddenly change tact. Be vulnerable and be transparent. The unwillingness to do more duties in the short career loyalty, I've touched on this, but there is this feeling that, and Gen Z are known for their maturity of viewpoint on their health, and that manifests that they want to have the work-life balance. So they need to fuel their bodies with good food, better food than we in the 1990s, and they need to go to their exercise classes. And people of my generation say, well, yeah, so would we. We would have loved all that. But instead, slightly destroyed ourselves by getting through the career ladder. And there's something to be done in this space, I think, because it cannot be that you come into the legal profession and think you can sit as a peer with your friends who are potentially not in a professional job and still expect to be able to attend the same spin class and or duck out at 4:50 p.m. So how do you solve that? And I just have a viewpoint. You guys can have your own ones, but it's worth having the conversation to hear different perspectives, and somebody, a penny will drop. Somebody's perspective will work for your firm. The way I've coached this with clients who have the problem is, first of all, why is it exciting for them to stay on and work? So what is it that they're participating in? And there's a little bit of theatrics that I deploy, whereby the line manager cannot look indispensable. When that line manager or the leader is running from meeting to meeting, we used to have the New York executive team in Condé Nast fly in to our London office, and they'd spend their time looking so important and busy on the phones, running from meeting room to meeting room. None of us were able to catch them for an instruction. And actually, it made you feel like, well, they really don't need us. They look like they've got it all sewn up. They're so good and their skills are pretty inspiring. So, us down here, we'll just kind of cruise. And therefore, I don't feel the need to stay on to help because they don't look like they need any help. And they've not explained to me which part of the puzzle I'm helping them solve. It feels like I'm doing the case research, which I could be doing any time of the day, or it feels like I'm doing, kind of binder collation, which is really boring. It's like, yeah, but that really matters when we hit the Court of Session in Edinburgh, one of the biggest courts in our country, tomorrow morning, and we look professional. So there's a little bit about stop looking like you've got it all in the bag. And I think as professionals, especially lawyers, that's a behavioural shift because we've been churned out to get to look impressive. And we're known in society as kind of upstanding members. I was even in my child's school last night, and as lawyers, you find yourself chairing committees because they're like, well, you'll know what you're doing. And it's like, there's another 14 parents in the room that weren't doing much. And that's because I need to take a bit of a lesson to say, just don't look like you got all that covered. Just be a little bit vulnerable and give out some of the work, So that's just my take on it. And that takes you over a little bit to the solutions that I've talked about. Trust, building, make the work experience unique, especially on the stepping stones. And the last point before my final slide is around that cultural and emotional intelligence. I don't know in your countries if this is being discussed at large, but EI or EQ or CI, these have all got different acronyms, but they basically mean to give your employees exposure to different cultural takes on the same topic. And when you look at some of the global corporates, this is actually becoming the second question on interviews for talent pipelines. And I'm talking in kind of sales, marketing, commercial teams here, but they're going to say to them, so what's your cultural intelligence? What an open-ended question that is. Really what they mean is like, are you investing in that? Because we've got 5 workforces working together. Unless you're tuned in to the different perspectives, the different emotional reaction to saying something, unless you know what to expect and you can slightly conform, you're chameleon, you're working across these audiences, then you're actually going to come into this organization and cause some issues. So this is becoming a real key area. And if you're doing any kind of team development, I would suggest cultural intelligence training, emotional intelligence training is something you should have high up there. And by the way, you know, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, even, you know, Gen X, Millennials, which is probably I'm cusp of, you know, they actually talk about which employers invest in that skill set when they're out with their peers and dinners. And I've been privy to, like, my trainees, they actually talk about that, saying like, oh, well, it's great because we get cultural intelligence training. You think, wow, that it used to be you just trained on kind of discrimination law. So that's something to think of. This slide is really just for you to look at, but I thought I'd give you a perspective from both me and in-house legal, but also what my clients are handling because of intergenerational diversity. So on the kind of green side, we're seeing a lot more requirement for transparency, and the employees are holding employers to account. So no longer will Gen Z and Gen Alpha just stand for intolerable unkindness in a workplace. They expect a standard of behaviour, which is what they've conformed to, and they have a real maturity of that health, and they have a social aspect of what they'd be willing to accept. And so the whistleblowing lines are ringing pretty loud. And a lot of these cases, by the way, do not meet the legal definition of whistleblowing, but they all keep coming through the line. So we're seeing a lot of that. There's a lot of complaints about reward decisions. People saying, you know, there's a lot of worries actually about EDI&B. So equality, diversity, inclusion, and belonging is really the terminology that should be used. But how is that actually manifesting now? You know, was it an ambition and now it's a nice tick the box? How is it continuing to live and breathe? Employee representative groups are what you set up in corporates, and you have different demographics in each group. But you know, is that just a talking shop, or does their opinion now actually matter? On the yellow side, the unionization, especially I see some of the colleagues from Denmark and Germany on this call, there's a lot of unions trying to knock on doors. We're battling off one that's just got 6 members out of 6,000 on the factory floor, and you'd think they would just give up. But my goodness, they keep coming back and back and back. And then we were sent the invoice for like the fees of these people when we've not even recognised the union. So that is a mounting area of work, the whole kind of statutory recognition of unions and or the employee relations dial of how do you actually deal with that. I've put there about the right to disconnect. A lot of you will be aware of kind of legislation across Europe, both in terms of transparency, fair transparency of rewards, so kind of equal pay, but also this right to disconnect off the back of COVID. And this is just another example of employees holding the employer to account. So I think there's a bit of a, you know, I deal with corporates where the HQ isn't always in Europe. And there is a bit of a view of like, you know, what more legislation could they throw at us? And I think my reaction is, it doesn't really matter what the legislation says. The employees are going to have this view anyway because of the intergeneration coming up the back. So, you know, what is it we're doing about that? My final slide, and thank you for bearing with me. I think I'm on time, but just a little bit of fun. I think if you're going to engage better with clients that have a Gen Z presence or Gen Z consumer, and or you might be wanting to do something with your teams. This is some terminology that has come about that didn't used to exist. And you might start hearing it at the water cooler or the harmonious breakouts that you want to create. And I just thought this was quite funny because it's not what you think it means. So mid-performance is actually when somebody says, well, it was a bit mid, it means pretty poor. It doesn't actually mean they're middle of the, you know, they're not high and low, they're in the mid. It's actually, they're right at the bottom. So that's confusing in itself, but there you go. That's a Gen Z attitude. What's the T means, what's the gossip, like what's the chat in the workplace? I find it funny when I give this training and then I hear the leaders go and try it out. So it gets quite a laugh, but it's really engaging. Jobless behaviour it means over keen. So that's a little bit on that gaslighting bit. It's like, oh, such jobless behavior, you know, when one of the you know, the trainees is really showing the rest of them up, and it's like, calm down, stop being so keen. Stands on business means get stuff done. So if you have talent that you trust and are confident, you know, they stand on business, they get stuff done. And slay, a lot of you'll have heard of. I saw lots of Christmas adverts with this in it, but it basically means like quite snazzy outfit, quite a nice look. It's a little bit more about the image and materialism, but anyway, that's just a little bit of fun at the end. And I'll close there. That's my details. If you're interested in any more about what I speak of, I do quite a lot of it on LinkedIn, and that's just some contact details. So I'll pass back to you, Laura.
That's great. Thank you very much, Lizzie.
You're very welcome.
Really insightful and a lot of food for thought there. I mean, just some of the things that you spoke about there are certainly things that I'm dealing with at the moment. So the whistleblowing line and some of our larger employer clients is going wild with complaints, as you say, that don't tick the box in terms of a legal whistleblowing claim, but nonetheless there are issues that need to be resolved within the workplace. The other thing that kind of resonates is this, the younger generation having a different perspective in terms of loyalty and the work-life balance and actually what they want out of a career, whether it's in law or somewhere else. Within BTO, we've recognised that not all lawyers that come to our firm want to be partners and are on that aspiration to be partner, to be equity partner, to reach the top heights. So and recognising that, but also giving them a voice and being part of the overall strategic vision for the future for the firm. You know, we've now introduced legal director level, so that's so that you can go as far as, you know, legal director. You're not a partner, but you do have a voice. You are part of the future of the firm. You know, they're involved in strategic decisions and whatnot. And we just had our partners conference at the weekend there, and the legal directors were all invited along. Some of them do have aspirations to be partners, but some of them are, you know, are quite clear. I do not want to be a partner. This is where I want to be, and we're kind of recognising that. But the tension between the different generations, and certainly with some of the clients that I'm working with, but within our firm as well, there is still that older generation wondering why people are leaving at 5 o'clock to go to the spin class. But hold on a minute, you should still be there at 8 o'clock. You know, we've got work to do. So it's certainly something that resonates with me in our own firm, but also with a lot of experiences that we're having with clients. So it'd be interesting to know if anyone else has got, if it resonates, this whole topic of multi-generational working resonates with you guys. So feel free to chip in.
I'd be interested to know, Faisal, if it's an issue in North Africa or not, because we had a Central European meeting yesterday, and our Austrian firm was saying we just can't get staff. They're not prepared to come in and work 40 hours a week. There are people, anecdotally, somebody saying, I'm 28 years old, I want to do a part-time job. Why do I want you to do a part-time job? You're a highly talented, experienced. I've worked enough in my life. And just completely different attitudes. But I asked the question at the end, isn't it up to law firms to adapt? Because if you keep sitting there going, well, this is the way we work, you're not going to get the talent. I also know that in Asia Pac, or certainly Asia, where Chris is based, it's much less of an issue culturally. So I'd be interested to know, Faisal, in North Africa, what are you seeing those cultural issues, generational issues?
In Morocco, what we face a lot, what law firms face a lot, is it is difficult to maintain talented lawyer, because lawyers in Morocco want quickly to incorporate to launch their law firm. So we try to change and to make a lot of efforts in order to maintain talented lawyer, such as explaining them the projects of the law firm, the aim to be a great law firm, and the aim to have more partners. We try to explain them that we are open to have more partners. If any lawyer has the competence to be a partner, we will make it as a partner. We try to propose bonuses each year in order to try to maintain talented lawyer. But it is a real subject in Morocco. It is very difficult to maintain. That's why we have an important turnover in our law firm. But this is our goal: is to be creative and try to create a good environment, make efforts to maintain them.
But it sounds like you're being transparent about development paths and incentives and
exactly.
The ambition of
you must be implied in the project if you would like to maintain. And we try to develop to be more implied in their work, in trying to make. We try to what we say, not to give to try to learn. We try to explain them that they can learn from our expertise, and we make efforts when they make mistake. We try to correct them in a good way. We try to participate in their development, in their skills, just to maintain them. This is one of the solutions that we try to do in order to maintain lawyers in our law firms.
Interesting. And I know from experience that both SKV in Hamburg, I don't know about the rest of the group, but also Codex. I mean, you are very progressive in the way that you certainly looking in from the outside. I don't know how it is internally. Maybe this is a time for a bit more honesty and sharing the struggle. But in terms of the way you've structured everything from where you work and how you work.
Yes, Keith, can you repeat the first part of your question, because I had a phone call coming in and I couldn't hear you.
I was just commenting, looking in from the outside. It seems to me that both SKV in Hamburg, obviously I haven't visited the other offices because that would be treason, since we have people in Berlin and Frankfurt and Munich, and the same with Codex. You appear to be very dynamic and forward-thinking in the way not only you structure your offices, but the way you develop your people. I guess it'd be interesting to hear. And I know, Laura, you've changed.
Yes.
And I know that's been a desire, sort of bubbling under in terms of BTO. But it'd be interesting to hear from Germany and Denmark.
Yeah, Yannick, I will start to explain to this situation. That was, Lizzie explained, was our problem too. We have this Generation Z and they come from the university, and these guys are very experienced in theory and want to earn high salaries, and they are not experienced in the practice, and now we have the problem: how can we handle this problem? And we come down to, we have a partner track and we have a normal employment track for our lawyers, but if the associates on every career level want to switch to the partner track, they can do this. We have a mentor system in our firm, so we have a partner who's leading the associate, but then the associate has a mentor if he or she wishes this. So two partners are here looking at one associate. Yeah, we are speaking on a very low level with them. We all, yeah, we are looking at them. We have contributions like, meetings once in a year with all partners for 3 or 4 days in a nice hotel, and feel good talking about the career or talking about other topics. Yes. It's more like paying a high salary. You have to give them a good feeling in the job, and take them by the hand and say, okay, I will show you how it works, and you are my friend and not my employee. That is what we are doing.
I can try to explain also what works for us in Codex. We are at the moment, we are 14 partners of the company, and most of us are educated in the largest law firms in Denmark. And actually, we did not like the way things worked out in the large companies. So this is like the whole essence of Codex, is that we are a law firm that allows people to also have time with their partner, with their family. So more often we ask our employees to go home than ask them to stay. Or I would say we never ask them to stay. We actually often ask them to go home in order to have some time away from office. And still, last night I left early to go do some sport, and then in the evening I just checked my emails, and then my secretary answered 5 minutes later, and one of the employees also answered. And just talked to them this morning and said, don't do that. But they decide for themselves to do it because they prefer to do it this way. So we are very open in order to people allowed to work from home, and they are of course we try to mix between the offices in order to be close to each other, and very much we appreciate that all partners, everyone who is able to do it, they advise the younger people how to do how to solve the cases. And we are very privileged in order that many people come knocking on the door asking to either change to our company or start after university to be employed in our company. So we are able to pick from the best at the moment, and also we did hire a lot. This new year we appointed 5 new people as like in a partner track. So they are pointed out to be like they have a title of becoming partner, and 2 of them are from outside, and 3 are employees that have been here for a while. So that's very nice. So for me, Codex, nothing to complain about in Denmark. Everything is good on that side.
That's the same in Germany. I don't know if you know that we have this a large time of parental leave that employees can claim, and we enable our associates, not only the female associates, the male associates as well, take the parental leave. You can look at the children as well at the same time as your partner. And I have an associate in my team now. He takes parental leave for more than, I think, for 10 months now. And his wife is working. So yeah, that's it's quite tough for us when you are a partner, because they like to work, I think, more as an employee, yeah, and most of them wants to stay an employee on partner level, like a salary partner or something else. But when you ask them, do you want to be an equity partner? They want to take the contributions of the employees, yeah, but not the problems of self-employment. Yes, and that's that's a big problem in the practice.
Sorry, can I just say, Yannick, I think you touched on some of the aspects. I think that Lizzie, get me wrong if I got this wrong, that you talked about in terms of it may not necessarily be a partner path. It may not necessarily be more money. The latest generation are coming up with a different mindset and different demands. And is it a case that that the older generations have to, move towards the younger generation, or is it that we shoehorn the younger generation into a different model? Is it a halfway house? What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I've always represented employers, respondents, and corporates, so I am loath to say it's down to management to move to the younger. That's not what it's about. It's part of the reason we do these mentoring programs, Chris, because there's so much to gain from being inspired by what's gone before. But when it's not forced on them, like a tell, Bettina was saying that they're friends and they get more from the relationship. A lot of firms and partners would, put their hands up and say, no, thanks. That's not the type of relationship we can afford here. But instead of the tell and you must do, and this is the way it works, and interested in your opinion, but keep going, we say that like you can teach a lot more of these like soft skills and the collaboration and the communication required through a kind of non-combative relationship like mentoring, I guess, Chris, because it's kind of a rehearsal ground. People can try things out. You can get a reaction. It's like, that wouldn't go down well, or like, yeah, that's a genuinely good opinion. You should mention that next time. So that's one thing. I think it's like giving both a bit of a fairer platform, but it's not about moving one or the other, because otherwise we're just going to exhaust out, the current leadership, really.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting to hear your perspective from the in-house legal looking at clients, because the firms in our network will be grappling with the same things within their firms and grappling with their clients' issues across the board. So it's interesting to hear your perspective and really to summarize that with, by saying, here are the generations and here are the considerations. Here's one side of the equation. Here's a solution side of the equation. And really, really relevant stuff that we've heard today.
Great.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lizzie. That was really fantastic, and to everyone on the call for the contributions. I think that's really what we're hoping to get out of these sessions, is that share our experiences. I certainly think there's something that we can learn from Yannick and his approach in his firm, and Bettina in terms of what you're doing as well. So that's been great. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining the call. Just by way of reminder, there is a LinkedIn group that's not really taken off yet, but let's see what we can do on that. There's another call scheduled with Lizzie towards the end of the month, and then we can see what we might want the next session to be on and what we might get as benefit from that. So thank you to Lizzie. Thank you to Chris.
Thank you too.
Thank you.